Trump unleashes 10% global tariffs with higher reciprocal rates. By the numbers, the reciprocal tariffs hit dozens of nations, including some of the country's largest trading partners. Imports from the European Union, Japan, and South Korea will be subject to tariffs of 20% or higher. Imports from Vietnam are subject to a tariff rate of 46%, while Taiwanese imports will face 32% tariffs. The reciprocal tariffs have been tailored based on how unfairly the administration says the countries treat U.S. exporters. The rates, calculated by Trump's top economists at the Council of Economic Advisors, are meant to hit back at the tariff and non-tariff trade barriers. Trump said the published rates are half as high as the originally calculated levels. The trade actions unveiled on Wednesday come on top of 25% tariffs on foreign-made vehicles and auto parts announced last week that will take effect at midnight. Steel and aluminum imports face similar tariff rates, with taxes threatened on lumber and pharmaceuticals. The 25% tariffs applied on Canadian and Mexican imports that don't comply with the USMCA trade agreement will go into effect until the nations impose tighter border controls, senior officials said. When those tariffs are removed, the North American countries will be subject to the baseline tariffs. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but at least in the auto sector, they did not impose the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I think because they had enough auto industry CEOs screaming in their ear about how many of their parts come from Canada and Mexico, like they literally would not have been able to build cars. So this is Eric Doherty here, who's very excited about this announcement. Trump was just handed a large poster, and he's now going through every country with unfair tariffs against the U.S. We are so back.
Yeah.
Now, I thought I recognized the name. Oh, yeah, that's the Eric Doherty who was just caught taking a rather small amount of money to lie to his audience, undermine Maha, and claim that unlimited sugar is a freedom issue.
That's right. He's a soda shill.
He's a soda shill. He took some money on behalf of Big Soda to undermine Bobby's Maha agenda. So I don't know why he still has any kind of an audience, why he's commenting on anything. Maybe he got paid by Lutnick to post this. Who knows? Who knows? But here's our illustrious president announcing and breaking down the tariffs.
So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart.
Yeah, there we go.
So 67%, so we're going to be
good.
charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You know, you think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46% tariff.
You know, but Rambo went over
Taiwan,
there and he set things straight.
They took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it. Now we have almost none of it, except the biggest company is coming in. We're going to end up with almost 40%. Lee Zeldin's working to get their approvals. And it's an amazing company. Mr. Wei of one of the great companies of the world, actually. They're coming in from Taiwan, and they're going to build one of the biggest plants in the world, maybe the biggest for that. But 64%, we're going to charge them 32%. Japan, very, very tough. Great people. And again, I don't blame the people for doing it. I think they're very smart in doing it. I blame the people that sat right in that Oval Office, right over there, right behind the Resolute desk or whichever desk they.
Okay, so very very excited crowd, very excited about these tariffs. So we laid tariffs on 180 different countries and territories, including a few uninhabited islands. One island where the only population is actually a U.S. military base. I don't know
Yep.
if that means that they get tariffed if they send their own equipment back to the United States. Maybe they have to pay a duty on it. We've tariffed small islands off the coast of Australia, where Australia gets one tariff, the territory gets another higher tariff. Doesn't seem very sensible in many ways. You got Costa Rica there gets a 10% tariff. Now, these tariffs, remember, are on top of the baseline tariffs. There's that
Right.
baseline 10%, and this is slapped on top. According to some reporting we're going to read, China overall, it comes out to about 46%, the tariff. So yeah, St. Kitts ripping us off, man. The Sudan. Yeah, those Sudanese, man. Those Sudanese. Libya, we're going to start tariffing the slave markets that we helped them recreate there in Libya. So this is Dan Ives, no socialist by any means. This guy is an analyst for Wedbush Securities. The tariff numbers are a convoluted set of calculations that appear to be taking each nation's trade surplus by their total imports with the U.S. If a ninth grader in high school presented this tariff chart to a teacher in a basic economics class, the teacher would laugh and say, "Sit down." And somebody represented that in graphics form. Apparently, a lot of very smart people are saying that the numbers themselves make absolutely no sense, and you'd have to be pretty clueless to come up with the numbers that they did. It certainly does not suggest they exercised the utmost care in deciding how to arrange these tariffs, that they literally tariffed an island with only a U.S. military base on it. That doesn't really scream competence. So here's Trump putting any of those fears to rest by explaining the term groceries and his understanding of it.
It's an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I used it on the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. It sort of says a bag with different things in it. Groceries went through the roof, and I campaigned on that. I talked about the word groceries for a lot.
Yeah, it's nobody uses that word anymore. Gosh,
Yeah.
I haven't heard that since I was in grade school.
It's an old-fashioned term.
Yeah. It's like that song, Old Fashioned Love Song. I like that song. Sometimes I play that song for Melania and she just bursts out crying. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
why.
heard,
So I say, are you thinking about that guy Ivan, the one you actually loved before you decided to go for the money? Are you thinking about Ivan again? She never answers.
I heard one of the islands they tariffed had no people on it. I heard it was just like an
There
island
is
of penguins or
there
something.
is an uninhabited
Yeah.
island that they tariffed. Yes. Yeah. So I'm sorry, that doesn't suggest that they really thought this through, that they didn't notice that they were tariffing islands with no people,
No one on them. Yeah.
islands with 1,600 people, islands
been
with
ripping us
only
off. Who?
Americans on them.
Who? Seagulls? Been ripping you off?
Those penguins, they're very tricky. They're very
Yeah.
tricky. That's why I stopped going to the Central Park Zoo every time I go there. I go to the penguin cage. I come out without my wallet.
So a lot of Republicans were very skeptical and critical of this. John Kennedy waxes more philosophical than you would expect him capable of, because Trump's saying, in the long term, it's going to work out. To which he responds, in the long term, we'll all be dead. What about the short term?
In the long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too. Nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs is going to be on the economy.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy.
Senator Kennedy of
And Rand Paul, never one to be afraid to buck the party, had this to say.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hott and Smolley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
So China has responded. The U.S. move disregards the balance of interests reached in multilateral trade negotiations over the years and the fact that it has long benefited greatly from international trade, China's Commerce Ministry said in a statement. Quote, China firmly opposes this and will take countermeasures to safeguard its own rights and interests, the ministry said, as the world's largest economies look set to spiral deeper into a trade war that stands to upend global supply chains. Trump on Wednesday announced China would be hit with a 34% tariff on top of the 20% he previously imposed earlier this year, bringing the total new levies to 54% and close to the 60% figure he had threatened while on the campaign trail. So if you have a TV, I hope it's in good working order, because the days of being able to get a $300 flat screen are over, baby. Now, this is what I was mentioning before. Auto giants, surprisingly resilient as sweeping U.S. tariffs spare Canada and Mexico for now. Analysts and economists said the relatively muted response from auto stocks could be partly attributed to an exemption for Canada and Mexico, where many car makers, have production hubs from Trump's highly anticipated reciprocal tariffs announcement. In a major speech, Trump on Wednesday said his plan would set a 10% baseline tariff across the board, with even higher targeted tariff rates of 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, and 46% on Vietnam. The White House said Canada and Mexico would be exempt from the baseline 10% tariff rate, as well as from reciprocal levies for specific countries for now. So as of when I was preparing the slides about an hour ago, this was where the market was sitting. It's quite a rout. You know what? I will give you an update right now. Dow was picked back up a little bit to down 277. Nasdaq's down 4.62. S&P 3.49. The Russell 2000, which is small cap stocks, 5.30. So yeah, it is a bloodbath. Most stocks are held by the top 1%. On the other hand, a lot of people's pension funds, a lot of people's 401ks, a lot of people's retirement savings are in the market. And best advice for people like that is don't look at the numbers today, because you're going to get really upset. This was very predictable. With tariffs, the history, as Rand Paul points out, of trying to tariff your way to prosperity is not good. Believe me, not good. The idea that all of this manufacturing is going to come flooding back to the United States, that's what Senator Kennedy there is referring to. Like, yeah, maybe long term, but what happens now when all these people are going bankrupt, all these farms are going under? And that aside, it's certainly no guarantee that that's what would happen. You know, China, in response to the earlier tariffs, started just shifting its supply chain to get around it. There's no saying these factories will come to the United States. They could just wind up benefiting other countries that are cheaper to do business in. So not good. Believe me, not good. even if the long-term theory were correct, and that's not at all clear, that's not going to help people who are living in a cardboard box by the time you would get these factories built. Like you don't just prefab a factory and throw it up. To create factories that can manufacture auto parts safely that are not going to get you killed takes time, man. That takes a lot of time. That's very precise engineering. You got to get the architectural firms in, you got to get everything designed, you got to get everything approved, you got to go through testing to make sure it's manufacturing it properly. That would take years. What this will do to the economy in terms of inflation, in terms of layoffs, employment, you've got the double whammy. We are already seeing higher layoffs than we've seen since the pandemics. So you got the combination of Elon running around in the federal government, just kind of firing people willy-nilly to see what'll happen if he does it, at the same exact time that you're creating an economic environment where businesses are not going to hire. Like this could be, I think a recession is inarguable and inevitable. This could be a depression when you look at all the factors at play here.
Well, yeah, I mean, the odds of a recession just shot up to over 50%. And one thing I think people should understand is that despite whatever rhetoric comes out of these people, they're not trying to tariff our way into prosperity. They're trying to tariff their way into permanent tax cuts. This is a way to raise revenue to offset some of the losses from making permanent the Trump tax cuts that were passed in 2017. These people speak fondly of the era before the income tax, where the government was funded exclusively through tariffs. And so that's what this is for. That's why it's called Liberation Day. It's not Liberation Day for America. It's Liberation Day for them. It's Liberation Day for rich people who don't want to pay income taxes anymore, and they think they can use this as a sort of replacement. As we can see, the results already disastrous. Donald Trump already saying there's going to be pain. And what these senators, these down ballot people who we just heard from a little bit in that segment, have to say, is something you should really pay a lot of mind to, because they understand that they are not the charismatic cult leader that is Donald Trump, who the base will show up and vote for anyway. They already had a hard time in these special elections on Tuesday. They don't have the kind of pull with the base, these low propensity voters, as they now call their own base. That's not me saying it. That's them saying it, as we'll get to in a few segments down the road. There's going to be a price to pay politically for this. That's what Rand Paul said, in the short term and perhaps the long term, depending on how this goes. And so they really came in guns blazing in every respect. I mean, they're taking a blowtorch to the rest of the world, and now they're taking a blowtorch to our own economy.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very much longer that you're going to be able to keep any but the most Kool-Aid drinking people running around yelling, "This is what I voted for!
Yeah.
America's back!" How long are you going to be able to say that, especially because the irony of this is, okay, you wanted the Democrats' old working class base, you got them.
Yep.
Who's going to be most hurt by this?
Yep.
When they say there will be pain at first, not for them.
That's
not
right.
for their kids, not for their friends, not for anyone that they know. They're talking about you. There's going to be that pain for you. How long are they going to be able to retain that fanatical base when they can't afford groceries, which is not an old-fashioned word to those of us who actually buy them?
Please clap.